Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of LinkedIn Lunch Break, Solving Dispensary and Cannabis Brand Pain Points. My name is Guillermo Bravo. I'm the CEO, I'm the Chief Evangelist at Mediajel, a laser-focused dispensary advertising and marketing company focused on compliant, scalable digital strategies designed to increase foot traffic and boost e-commerce sales. I have 20 years of experience in both startup and agency environments, spearheading initiatives to drive sales, expand lead generation, and develop intuitive strategies to drive advertising campaigns in the cannabis space. Today, we're joined by Shayda Torabi. Shayda Torabi is the co-founder and CEO of Restart Cannabis, a Texas premier cannabis brand. Born and raised in Austin, Shayda founded Restart in 2018 alongside her two sisters after using CBD for years to personally help manage her pain after an pedestrian accident she was in 2015. Since launching, Shayda has become one of the leading educators and retailers in the cannabis industry and is also the host of a popular cannabis and marketing podcast called To Be Blunt. Shayda is passionate about helping build great customer brands in the cannabis industry and leverage her background in technology and marketing and applying that to helping navigate the cannabis industry to connect the consumer to high quality cannabis products and education. Welcome, Shayda. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Guillermo. I'm super honored and looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise. Well, let's talk about, what you hear from dispensaries and cannabis brands about the issues they're facing when, building and scaling their business. So let's start out. Tell me a little bit about yourself and about your podcast and Restart CBD brand.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I will share the condensed version. If anybody's curious, feel free to click over on my LinkedIn profile or go Google my name. I'm very, as a marketer, I'm very searchable. So I think that's kind of, tip number one is making sure your digital profile, speaks to who you are as a brand or business or a personal brand in my case. So I am born and raised in Austin, Texas. Texas is my home. And as most of you are probably aware, Texas is a little behind when it comes to cannabis adoption, kind of at a, full scale approach. And so while I grew up in Texas, I have been a really big fan of the plant in general, especially watching it become more legalized as state to state start to flip. So spend a lot of time in Colorado, California, Washington, et cetera, and just develop this really, love for the cannabis plant in general. Now in 2015, I was in a car accident. I was hit by a vehicle as a pedestrian. That is the kind of crossroads where cannabis went from being more of the recreation to the more medicinal approach. And so in 2015 was really when I started adopting CBD as a cannabinoid to help me manage and mitigate my pain and inflammation. Now, kind of layer on top of that, I am a corporate technology and marketer. I have a degree in marketing, a degree in business. I'm really my whole goal, my whole passion is to help destigmatize and to professionalize cannabis through that lens of marketing and business. And so for me, that was kind of my first approach getting into the industry from a professional side. I had this personal experience with the plant. Obviously, being in Texas, there wasn't really a runway for this conversation to be happening, especially as CBD was this new cannabinoid being federally legalized in 2018, kind of 2019. So when we launched in 2018, we were one of the first brands in Texas to launch a specific, cannabis focused business. And so that was very exciting / very challenging just because we didn't really have, peers that we could look to in Texas to say, how did you go about, establishing your business? What were some of the pitfalls that you went through? And so now being in business for 3 years, it's really, a privilege and a joy of mine. We were just named the #1 CBD brand in Austin. We are women owned, sister owned. And I think people really resonate with our approach of education first, just kind of thinking through that customer journey to deliver a high quality, cannabis experience. We want to make people canna curious and give them confidence, whether they want a, no THC experience and they can explore other cannabinoids, or they do want that, more fuller THC experience. And so kind of finding that opportunity that exists in the middle. And then kind of the last component was last year in the middle of COVID, just, being a marketer myself, wanting and craving that networking connection, and also a little selfish. I wanted to have conversations very much like we're able to have today right now. I am a sponge. I love to soak up that knowledge and information to ultimately make me the best, business owner that I can be. And so also selflessly being able to share those conversations. So I launched To Be Blunt last year. I've been super fortunate to have interviews ranging from every aspect of the industry, from Texas to California to Illinois and everything in between, compliance, regulation, marketing, packaging, edibles, smokables, and all those kind of things. And really just try to help, patch those gaps of what can we learn from each other as we navigate through this very, it's not a new plant, right, by any means. It's not that cannabis came out of nowhere, but it's a very new emerging industry that doesn't have a lot of parameters set in place that other industries do. And so that's a little bit more about me, and hopefully people, can join into that conversation and really be able to learn a little bit from our discussion today.
Yeah, you've really been on the front lines there in Texas, just bringing cannabis to the mainstream and to Austin specifically. I mean, it's really impressive. You interviewed some heavy hitters on your podcast, To Be Blunt. Can you tell us a little bit more about the recurring pain points and themes that you run into when interviewing different dispensary and brand owners?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that kind of highlights and sticks out to me that is probably a little bit more familiar to those who are listening who have a marketing background, but probably unfamiliar to those of you who are like, I love cannabis. I don't know kind of, how to kind of establish or set myself apart. And I think it's really that twofold approach of understanding what is your brand identity. There's so many different ways that you can go to market, and that's kind of the other component as well. So you kind of have to think about it. Are you a product that is direct to consumer? We choose to be direct to consumer. We are a CBD only brand, so that qualifies us at a federal level to ship our products direct to a consumer's front door. I understand if you are obviously in the full-on Delta 9 legal marijuana market, you cannot cross state lines. Interstate commerce is not possible. And so you have to then look at, do I want to go the dispensary route? Am I going to a specific dispensary? Do I own the dispensary? What is my product going to look like when it sits on a shelf, next to other people's products?
Mm-hmm.
I think those are some of the things that I hear a lot about, just being able to differentiate your brand so that it, speaks to the end consumer. And, kind of if you step back at an abstract level, of course, we all love cannabis, but I think the data really shows that more and more Americans, especially considering what happened with COVID over the last year, people were finding themselves at home a lot more. They were a little bit more curious. They were looking for ways to connect to themselves and to ultimately feel better, whether that was anxiety, pain, sleep, things like that. And so trying to find brands that align with that mission. And so again, it's kind of thinking, you're not just selling weed at the end of the day. You're not just selling CBD at the end of the day. It's like, why would someone pick my product? And then kind of backing out of, okay, well, what is my go-to-market strategy? Again, reflecting on CBD, we choose to be direct to consumer. Not every brand wants to be direct to consumer. I see lots of CBD brands now popping up in, Sephora and different, wellness kind of, cosmetic type of conversations in stores. You see it popping up in doctors' offices. You obviously see the online approach. And so being able to kind of navigate that, how you want your brand to be seen, as well as who's your end consumer. And the answer of, we're selling to everyone is not going to get you very far. So you really do need to think through, how do I want to differentiate my brand so that I can find success and carve out that unique niche and voice in the market to be successful?
Yeah, and you've done exactly that, right? And it's funny, when I first got in the cannabis space, I only thought it was about getting high, and that's not what it's about. It's about, it's the medicinal properties, it's treatment, it's inflammation, it's sleep, it's all these different ailments that people are using it for. And it's not about getting high. And that's what it's our job as marketers to, to really set that in stone. Like, people drink alcohol, they don't always drink alcohol to get drunk. It's not the same, it's not the same. That's not the goal. So, it could just be for socializing, or it could be for, as I said, like, sleep. And
well, especially too, when you start to like dive into the specific cannabinoids,
oh yeah,
those terpenes, how they interact with each other. I think there's, especially when CBD first became legalized, there was a little bit of like, you're not selling, like full Delta 9, because I do think a lot of the market and the conversation was like, you can't get high off of it. Like, who would want it? But now that you're, seeing research open up, there's a really great opportunity to help reshape that conversation. I will be the first to say, I love getting high. I love that effect. I love that experience. I seek it out. I chase it. I go on trips to legal states just so I can experience it. What I see walking through my doors, and I'm sitting in my dispensary right now in my back office, I hear customers coming in and they're saying, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. It's whether it's sleep, it's cancer, it's this, other ailment or condition. People are looking to plants to feel better. And when we can unpack all the potential possibilities of cannabis, that's where I think as a marketer, it gets really exciting, because you're no longer just selling like weed is legal or CBD is legal. It's, hey, here's maybe this ratio product, or here's this formulation that our scientists did, or here's I think a huge market opportunity is canned beverages. You just talked about it, kind of the social experience. There's so many microdose products now hitting the market, and you can kind of see, some states the leading product is a microdose drinkable infused product, and in the same breath, another state the product is like this 100 milligram maxed out, full dose consumption. And so it's not that one is right or wrong. It's just, again, as a brand, trying to figure out who's my customer and how am I selling, and what is that product that I'm ultimately putting in front of that person to enjoy and consume.
Yeah, and it's really important to segment your customers. Like, as you said, there's such a huge market out there, and yeah, you can buy a product at CVS or Rite Aid or some of these mainstream stores, but you're not going to get the same type of product, and it's not associated with maybe a lifestyle or a vision or this passion that this company is behind. So it's really important that you do your research, you find the source of where the product's coming from. Are you behind the company? Do you believe in it? And if you are, then commit to them and stick around and support that company. So, and it's important to do that, buying online, but also visiting the store, and then also on social media, following different accounts and just supporting their voice. So do you find yourself, as far as your business model, is it primarily in-store visits, or do you do a lot of online sales as well?
We are predominantly in store, but we do have an online e-commerce. So because my background is kind of corporate technology, I come from platforms that I think, maybe another tidbit for people to kind of think through. COVID really pushed us into a digital first kind of mentality. You needed to be able to, whether it was food, seeing your doctor, like you needed to have some component of online to be able to connect and sell to your consumers. And so because that was my background prior to getting into cannabis, we were already operating e-commerce, but getting through COVID, I think, was obviously new challenges, not only for us as we were navigating, okay, well, people aren't coming into the door, so how do I kind of shift that experience to online, improving the online experience, but also saw, again, through my podcast and just my network and hearing what my peers were going through, it was like people who weren't prepared for online because that wasn't something that they really ever thought was possible in cannabis. And there definitely are still tensions today when it comes through, payment merchant services and e-commerce platforms, but being able to navigate some of those different components to connect the dots for that consumer, I think, is where you can find some success. So we certainly did. I remember we did one video on on YouTube, that was a, tour the dispensary, because we couldn't have people come in the store during COVID. And so it was a, hey, this is what the in-store experience is like. Shop with us online, but know that, when we can open things up, we'd be more than happy to see you in the store. And I think that was a really great win for us to be able to connect with consumers and kind of continue on that education journey and continue on that storytelling, because that is the story that we're trying to tell and make people feel comfortable and shopping with us. But yeah, we are predominantly in store, and we do operate e-commerce, but my goal is to do more e-commerce as the weeks and months progress. But again, like I said, navigating payment merchants and selling things online is always a fun challenge in the cannabis space.
One of the many hurdles that we have to jump through that other industries don't have to. It's painful. Yeah. I remember selling, because when I first got into the cannabis industry, I was actually able to sell CBD on Amazon. And yeah, before they even knew what it was.
Right before they cracked down on it. Well, I just
Yeah.
saw Amazon obviously publicly said that they're not going to drug test their employees for certain positions. They're obviously making a huge stance on cannabis, but I think the flip side is kind of some of that murkiness, right? Like, what are these marketing channels? I get a lot of people on my personal Instagram, which is my choice. You know, when you're participating on these closed platforms, it's your choice what content you put on there, knowing that that content could pull your account down, it could delete your account, it could, you know, cause some sort of like threat to it. And so I post often, you know, this is me consuming cannabis. I like to, again, destigmatize it, professionalize it, show that it's not just this thing you kind of do like in the hidden closets. You know, it's something I'm very proud to do. I'm a proud, successful woman who enjoys consuming cannabis through a bong sometimes. And I have people who, you know, they observe that, they're like, how does Instagram not shut you down? And I'm like, there's no rules. They say these things, but, you know, in practice, it's, you know, kind of, you're leaving it up to that discretion of the person. I'm sure y'all deal with it all the time, navigating with your clients. It's like,
Yeah.
what's your propensity? What is your, you know, threshold for wanting to challenge some of these platforms? And so, yeah, if you can get away with being on Amazon, if you can get away with, you know, selling through PayPal or, you know, some of these other, you know, basic payment merchant services that other small businesses have access to, like, good for you. PayPal has shut me down. They've shut down my whole family, you know, extensions accounts. We are no longer, for the infinity of my life, able to do business on PayPal. And it's just kind of part of the nature of, you know, exploring and growing and dealing with the challenging points of the industry. But
Yeah.
we learn as we go.
You do. And it's, you know, just important to always be just ready to pivot in this industry. It's like, if one thing doesn't work and, you know, another will. And COVID was a great example of that. It was a shock in the beginning, and, you know, we chose as a company to embrace it. And, you know, we really took off because of that, and we doubled down. And same thing as you started a podcast, we started a webinar series because I wanted to get all this information out there. I wanted to educate
Right.
different, you know, leaders in the industry. Like, how do you market your brand? How do you get approved on this? How do you manage customer retention? There's like so much involved with running a dispensary or a delivery service or a CBD brand. Like, it's endless, and there's so much information out there, and, you know, it's confusing, and like, okay, what works and what doesn't. But it's, you know, the people that have really, like yourself, have, you know, been on the front lines and testing the different things out, being active on YouTube, on social media, on podcasts. You can't really replace that, and it's just so valuable to your potential customers and your brand. And it's just building your brand equity, right? So
Absolutely.
it's really important. You know, what kind of cannabis businesses do you think will be game changers this year?
Yeah, I love this question. I really have been watching some of the more advanced legal states. I think a lot of developments happening, obviously, in California and Oregon, in terms of cannabis infused into more than just like a menu item, or more
Mm-hmm.
than just like an infused dinner. You're seeing full on restaurants and bars open up that are very geared towards the cannabis consumer, whether it's a CBD focused experience or that full on THC experience. I think that's where I'm really excited to see as the industry evolves and opens up. I mean, in Texas, again, we don't have, you know, the same wine country as California, but we
Yeah.
have a pretty, you know, significant, you know, kind of wine area kind of in the hill country here in Texas. And, you know, I was just at one of the wineries with some of my family members a couple of weeks ago, and we were just remarking, like, how cool would it be to be able to see, you know, an operation where someone is growing and they're extracting and they're producing, and then, oh, by the way, here you can also, you know, consume products on the property, kind of getting into that experiential effect. And then I know that not Las Vegas, the whole state of Nevada, but it's obviously really focused on Las Vegas, is now the legalization of consumption lounges. And so when I was reading some of the details on that, it does seem like it's going to encourage and apply into some more of the restaurants, more of that experiential kind of approach. And so I think that that's really remarkable and a really great opportunity. It's a shame that obviously cannabis is bucketed into this Schedule I drug, and we don't
Yeah.
have the same flexibility to be able to incorporate it as much as other industries have. But I do believe the traditional model of like going to a dispensary and having kind of all the red tape around how you experience it and how you consume it has to evolve. And so I think you're seeing that with some of these states start to kind of push those boundaries. And I'm already seeing some of that even in states like Texas, where we don't have that full, Delta 9 experience, but you're certainly seeing the CBD and the hemp side of that conversation open up that, opportunity for different brands and people to experience, wow, like I get to see, a pot plant up close, or wow, I get to see a hemp plant up close. I think that experience and being able to connect the consumer to something more so than just, again, I kind of always revert back to, we're no longer in the like weed is legal. It's like, yeah, weed is legal. And now people, they want some sort of story. They want some sort of experience. They want some sort of, differentiating factor. And it's really exciting as a brand who gets to kind of play in that space of being able to kind of, challenge some of the regulations, if you will, because I believe, don't quote me on this, but if anybody's listening and they can kind of, clarify, the FDA hasn't released their rulings on hemp. And so there are no specific rulings on putting hemp CBD into like products, meaning like consumables, meaning edibles or beverages. But yet you see so many CBD edibles and so many CBD beverages hitting the market. And so obviously, again, it kind of goes back to what is that brand's willingness to kind of push against some of those regulations, knowing that there may or may not be some sort of enforcement, but also then, hey, here's a really great opportunity for us to kind of capitalize on this looseness of the regulations. Let's be creative and kind of deliver something unique. And so we were really kind of on that same pulse. We've been doing a few different CBD kind of pop-up dinners, and we're preparing our next CBD pop-up dinner with a really great local chef. And, again, being able to kind of bring cannabis to those canna curious consumers in a way that, again, guides them maybe to that dispensary experience or guides them to that e-commerce experience. But it's like, yeah, I can sell you CBD online or come to my shop.
Yeah.
Like, let's sit down and have a conversation and like get to know each other as humans and like talk about cannabis and talk about movies and science and all these other things that we know that cannabis can help accentuate in an environment that is non-traditional to the current conversation.
Yeah, well, you covered a lot there. And are you going to be in Vegas for MJ BizCon? Are you going to finally indulge one of those consumption lounges?
I am going to be in Vegas for MJ BizCon. It'll be my first MJ BizCon. And yeah, very much looking forward to. I mean, again, for me, I'm such a sponge of all this opportunity that any chance I get to come to these legal states and kind of pick things apart and see how other people are packaging products and understand what different ratios are. I think sometimes as a marketer, you get in the habit of, I got to do the bigger, better thing to get attention or to have my brand stand out. And I think the best marketing, in my opinion, is when you don't realize you're being marketed to, but also when you kind of can really excel at the basics. So having a really great brand message, having a really good brand voice, understanding what are the regulations and those compliance, issues, so you can have the best packaging so that you can supersede hopefully some of those repercussions when it comes to regulations. Of course, it's not anything, set in stone. We're all still learning. I think even the most successful brands need to have a spirit of learning and education still, because there's so much newness in the industry. But yeah, I'm very much excited to kind of, explore and experience Vegas cannabis.
Oh yeah. And I've had some in the past. I've had a champagne that was infused with terps, which was awesome. I've done some food and cannabis pairings, but I'm looking forward to like seeing some like top chefs come in and do a full experiential, 5-course meal with different ways of consuming cannabis along with consuming the food or drinks that they're paired with. There's so much creativity out there. And so, I mean, we'll see how things evolve in the next 5-10 years. And, in regards to the regulations, there's different federally, decriminalization things out there, and it's hot in the news right now, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's not, things are going to evolve without the legalization on the federal side. Like, we're going to continue to grow, continue to evolve. But that's when things are really going to change, right? Because it's going to, hopefully, one side, the banking and cash situation will be solved, and you won't have to walk around with a bag full of cash like like a drug dealer or something, and like we're
Right.
legitimate businesses. We're paying tax money. We are contributing to the economy. There's hundreds of thousands of jobs in the cannabis industry, and it's just
It's
getting started.
remarkable.
Yeah.
Yes, but the flip side to that, of course, that I always love to be the voice of reason for those in our industry.
Yeah.
Legalization isn't always rainbows and butterflies.
Nope.
Legalization at a federal level should give everybody some cause and concern. Obviously, don't want to go into it too much in detail, but I
Yeah.
talk about it a lot on my podcast. Interstate commerce, you look at these MSO multi-state operators. If you think Amazon talking about putting, no longer drug testing their employees and opening up their marketplace for cannabis is a precursor to the PepsiCos, the Wrigley's, the Coca-Colas, the
Oh,
Frito-Lays, these large corporate conglomerations who already have infrastructure. I just read an article the other day that was like talking about all the celebrities getting in on cannabis. They've obviously already got their brand established. Some of them
yeah.
more so have been cannabis friendly celebrities. But, again, I'm not saying this is good or bad. It's just people need to understand when you have not federal legalization, you can play within the confines of your state, and other states, if you have the finances to go set up those other, establishments. But I think the game is very much, like you said earlier, my favorite word is pivot. You need to
Yeah.
be prepared. You need to be prepared from a legal perspective. You need to be prepared for certain cannabinoids to enter and exit the market. In Texas, we're navigating Delta 8 right now, which I know has a very testy kind of persona in the federal level. And so again, it's just as new cannabinoids hit the market, as new consumptions, as new laws shift and change, it trickles down. It touches every aspect of our business. And so being up to date with how to navigate that is really important, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. What are your two favorite ways to market your cannabis brand? Like one fun and one like that has the best ROI.
So I would say that YouTube was the most fun for us, just because I think it's an underplayed channel when it comes to cannabis in particular. And it's one that has had a lot of, goodwill for us. Again, it's just, you think about, especially Instagram, for example, just kind of coming to market and saying that they're no longer a photo sharing platform, the importance of video, but also understanding that YouTube is a major search engine. And so being able to go to consumers kind of in a direct way, we found a lot of success. Again, my spirit of marketing is like, keep it simple, stupid. We took FAQs, frequently asked questions. I have a YouTube video that has, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher it, but let's say 80,000 plus views on it. And it was me smoking a joint, shot with my iPhone, telling customers, this is the part that you light, this is the part that you put your mouth on, helping walk through specifically our new consumers here in Texas, but put it on YouTube. And to this day, I have people who are like, oh, I saw that YouTube video, you put together. It helped me so much. And so again, I think there's no dumb question, and being able to kind of lean into that in a channel like YouTube has served us very, very well. And it's a lot of fun for us to get in front of the camera and to kind of create content in that way. I would say one that has brought the most ROI for us has been actually reviews. And I don't think that it gets talked about nearly enough. The power of, just like qualification. It's like someone doesn't even need to know, like, for example, I guess this is a quick story. We are the #1 rated shop in Central Texas because we were voted the #1 shop, but that's all of it, right? It's the brand, it's the experience in the store, it's the quality of products. But I get customers, and as a marketer, it pains me, who come to my dispensary and I say, welcome to Restart. How did you hear about us? And they say, oh, I Googled and you were the closest one near me.
Yep.
Sometimes they don't get the chance to learn or hear or be a part of your brand journey. They just find you because you're the closest one in proximity. And then seeing, I heard one guy just today, he's like, man, y'all had 5-star reviews and I just saw so many of them. So I said, I had to come, give you guys a shot and check it out. And again, kind of leaning into that review conversation, people feel comfortable when other people share it, when it's not coming directly from your brand. And so I know that online it's a little bit harder to capture that sentiment, but in retail, because we have things like Yelp and Google My Business, you can lean on some of those different features. Again, it's been super tremendous in helping establish that foundation for us. So when the customer comes in, they might not know why we're rated the best or why Google directed them to us. But then I get to help, kind of share that brand story. Oh, we're women owned, we're family owned, we're this, we're that, educate them and et cetera. But I think reviews is something that we should be investing a lot more in, empowering those customers who are already purchasing from us. They're already having a positive experience, capture that sentiment, and then use it to leverage marketing for future opportunities.
Dan, your customers are your best brand advocates, right? So it's, why not leverage that? And it's free advertising. You don't have to do anything. I mean, you do on your brand. You have to provide a great customer experience, product, and everything. Yes. But as long as you check off the marks, then people will be gladly to leave a review. And one thing a simple thing that most businesses don't even realize is just ask. Just ask for the review, whether it's a text message, email, or in person, or whatever it is. Just ask, and more than likely, they'll be happy to leave a review. So
especially brands that are selling online. This is a kind of a little freebie tip. You already have the customer's address. You're already sending them a product. It takes nothing to go print a business card, whoever you're printing, 1,000, 2,000. If you liked this product, we'd love, for you to leave us a review, whether it's directing them to your website to fill it out, whether it's an email address that you can receive those reviews. Like you said, if you don't make the ask, you will never get the answer. And so the least you can do is just ask these customers. You already are capturing them at that moment of that sale. And so just capitalize on it.
And another trick that we always use in store and in marketing materials is add a QR code to everything. So like if you have a 8.5 by 11 at the checkout, just put a QR code there, leave us a review, or join your loyalty program, or whatever it is, whatever you want, whatever your goal is for that campaign, you can leverage that. And if you really want to be creative with it, I mean, we've done this in the past. We've sent direct mailers. So everyone within a 10-mile radius, send them a direct mailer with the QR code, with an incentive. And in that QR code, they could get directions to your store to come to Restart, or order online if they're, not in the area. But there's so many ways to be creative and just leverage all the resources and, the customers around you in your community. So it's
absolutely
huge. What about the most surprising way you found to connect with customers?
I don't know if it's surprising so much as I think, it probably doesn't get a lot of attention. And it's something that even as our business scales, I'm trying to remind myself there is nothing like, having a conversation with a customer. And I think having a retail store, I get to have that experience more frequently than a brand who is perhaps selling through a dispensary, or if you're selling online, you don't always get to talk to your customers. But I think that the most surprising is when I get to have those experiences and those conversations directly, asking them, how are you liking our products? How are you liking shopping at our store? Getting that customer feedback, I think is a good and bad, is a not implemented practice nearly enough. And so being able to be a brand who really tries to connect those dots, to just be present to the conversation, has helped us tremendously improve products, improve, the experience of the store, improve just everything that we're doing, every little different touch point. It's good to have that feedback loop. And certainly being able to physically talk to customers. I make it a point. I don't just hang out in my office. I try to go out there and actually interact with customers as often as I can.
Wonderful. And can you speak to us as a product creator yourself about the responsibility that brands need to take when communicating the health benefits of their products? I mean, I'm sure you've heard about the FDA warning that was given to 15 different companies who were illegally selling various products containing CBD. Like, what advice do you have for businesses in the industry to stay compliant?
Yes, so this is really near and dear to my heart, especially in Texas. We're navigating it a lot. I think it's best practice for any brand. You should understand the law. If you are selling within the confines of your state, you need to understand the law, not only at your state level, but also at your municipality level. County to county can have varying cannabis laws. Layered on top of that, I think it's really important for you to be a part of professional organizations. Normal is kind of a national nonprofit that has a lot of really great chapters. They're very active here in Texas and in Austin in particular. They were very involved in our last legislative session, which is helping pass better cannabis laws in the state of Texas. So that's directly impacting me and my business. Other things, I'm on a board of Texas Hemp Coalition. They're kind of on the hemp side, helping influence, again, those policies and politics through the legislative session. And so it's really important, not just when, elections are happening, but all those kind of little intermediate things. Who are those regulatory bodies? In Texas, it's the Department of State Health Services. It's good to be in communication to those professional groups who are extensions of these different aspects of the regulation and legal process, so that you can better understand, hey, what is happening in the law? How do I navigate around it? And probably the third component is having really good legal counsel. Again, depending on where you are operating, we have a Texas specific cannabis lawyer. So she's very clued into, again, kind of that middle component piece of being a part of all these different conversations and regulation policies and these different groups. Not only am I personally involved, but my lawyer is also personally involved. And so together we help close that gap so that we can better understand those regulations. So it's not oh my gosh, I'm waiting to receive information. I'm helping be a part of that change in my state, and also trying to influence at a federal level how we can reflect that. So that way we can have the best understandings, and we can try to prevent some of the stuff that is happening with some of these, murkiness around the FDA and around the legalities of some of these different new cannabinoids, again, hitting the market, or consumption methods, or, how you test your products. And so I think having a good understanding of what's going on and who you can lean on when it comes to, navigating it are really important components, in my opinion.
I agree. And you said it best, is understand the law. And it's not just cannabis related laws. There's marketing laws, there's text messaging laws, there's all types of regulations that you need to be aware of. Just make sure you stay within those. You don't want to get those you don't want to get a warning from the FDA, or you don't want to get a $15,000 fine for text messaging someone without their permission, right? It's like you have to follow everything.
No, it's a really great tip. I think that there's a lot of laws and nuances around like email marketing, around social media. And again, it's not specific to cannabis necessarily. It's just, this is how you market, and you need to have those components. So whether you're a marketer like myself and you take on that ownership of being able to understanding those different components, or you hire an agency who's your marketing extension, you need to make sure that the people that you are building your team around, whether it's in-house or externally hiring on as extensions, are knowledgeable. So even that's probably another good, point and tip. I try to do my best when I'm hiring an agency or hiring someone to work alongside us. Test them, get a gauge of what is their understanding. If they can't fathom what you are trying to tell them around the cannabis industry, it's like, this is going to be really difficult, because you don't really understand, what you're digging into. And we've certainly experienced that ourselves, just dealing with different vendors and agencies who are like, no, we totally understand this. And then you're like, yeah, but do you? Because the laws in our world are a lot different than the regular laws of small business world. So yes, I couldn't agree more with what you said.
There's a lot more hoops for us to jump through. It's just, it's incredible. That keeps us on our toes, right?
It does. You have to have some thick skin and a true passion for this industry to weather through the evolutions that we're going through and will continue to go through. Yeah.
It takes a lot of grit to get through everything. Well, thank you again, Shayda, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Do you want to tell our viewers, where they can find you and your products, and, which part of town, there's stores in Austin?
Yeah, so if you're ever in Austin, Texas, we're in North Austin. We have a brick and mortar. You can just Google Restart CBD and we will pop up, as well our website. We also ship nationwide. We have a wide breadth of CBD related products, very high quality, topicals, sublinguals, pet products, smokables, etc. And then if you want to connect with me, again, Shayda Torabi, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube. You can just search for my name at the Shayda Torabi on Instagram. And then my podcast is To Be Blunt Pod on Instagram. And if you search for podcasts anywhere you listen, you can find the To Be Blunt podcast and look for my face and tune into some of my episodes. I release new ones every Monday. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and looking forward to connecting with those of you who are listening. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.